Hi, my name's Geoff and I'm a resident of the East End. Have been for the last 52 years. I was originally born in a street that no longer exists, called Lucknow Street, which is in the heart of the East End. I lived in that dwelling for 6 years. That dwelling was a tenement house, one up, one down, tiny little room with the big old coal-fired ranges. Our toilet facilities were in the backyard. Even in that time of destruction of the rest of the city, down the East End was still quite poverty-stricken. Our cold water, our water supply was in the backyard. We had to go down and fill your buckets or your pans or whatever it was. And round about the age of 6 we moved into Garth, which was quite a shock for young people like myself, and I had a younger sister at that time. We had indoor plumbing, we had a nice coal fire. The rooms were decidedly bigger and warmer, and free from a lot of the little rodents that used to run about in the old tenements. The Garths were quite a big breath of fresh air and have been a part of the East End since sort of the beginning of the war of the 30s. And it was a big rolling programme from local authorities and housing associations to do the slum clearances which blighted the area and which were probably synonymous throughout the country, not just in the northeast. Throughout the country it was acknowledged that the Sunderland area had some of the worst slums in the whole country. When people lived in the Garth's end years, obviously you had like some of them was like Burley Garth was square. Wee Garth had like a big opening where they had the mission, and a lot of families moved into there and they lived on different verandas and on different sides, and basically that's probably where the East End got its real community spirit. I know they go back years prior to that, say how sort of poverty ridden like communities always stuck together. Well, yes, they did, and they do now. It's because they have a common denominator between them, that nobody has anything. However, I think that the real community feel of what we say the East End really derived from the Garths, because of the geographical shape of the buildings. Everybody faced on everybody. Everybody knew who was who, and like I say, you had family that all lived within walking distance. You could visit 6 or 7 very close relatives within an hour, where nowadays you got people that live all over the country. So that's where the breakup of the communities really comes from. But now so you look back and you think, God, my auntie lived there, my nana lived there, and everybody had relations that lived 2-3 doors away, because like I said, the slum clearance, which was Burley Street, Maylands Rake and stuff like that, was sort of the early 30s to late 30s. I think 1939 was when Burley Garth was finished, and it was a breath of fresh air. We had a little other development which was down the East End, which was Harrison's Buildings. Harrison's Buildings was the first council houses in the UK that had hot and cold running water. It had gates on. It was enclosed. It was quite posh. Nobody had known anything like it. You got your own gates, and obviously when the war came along, we needed metal, so they were soon whipped down and melted down and made into armories. So quite a lot of things had changed in that period of time down the East End, and I believe obviously the war sort of galvanised everybody together as well. That'll have been quite an integral part of the community thing. Shows in like the Jubilees, the coronations, VE Day, all those sort of celebrations were all done. Where they're all numerous stories of everybody putting a candle around the verandas and lighting it. And obviously that was before my time, but I could imagine how it looked. A dark night. There wasn't street lights like we have now, and everybody you know, 200 odd houses, putting candles all the way around the verandas, you know, be quite nice. And as I say, that the community spirit sort of continued all the way through that I saw, even when we moved in until sort of the late 80s, was still quite apparent down here, until, you know, working conditions changed, people started to get a bit more money, and people started to aspire to move out of the area, be homeowners. The local authority or the housing associations decided they would modernise them. I think that was a catalyst for the change as well. It made people move, even though they didn't want to. It was like, you know, because people tend to get stuck in one place and stay, so they made them move by the very fact they had to for the restoration to take place. They moved them from one side to the other in a rotation. But a lot of people had made the decision, you know, I'll just move, and I'll move to a different area. And once they moved, they settled and never came back. The accommodation they had was dreadful. I mean, you've seen the photos, you know, down the bottom, you know, the long bank and that, and people say, oh, happy days.
I know.
Okay, you know, that's rose-coloured glasses. These people were given a lovely house, and it was great. The only flaw was no central heating, and these houses were bloody ice boxes. You know, we had a 3-bedroom house, and the concrete floors, so you know, there's straight away. Ours was facing sort of southeast, so it wasn't too bad. So we would get the sun first thing in the morning, so our rooms would warm up. We were quite lucky. The ones that lived on the other side, in between the Garths, they were dreadful, because you had like the 2 Garths and the road in between. So them that lived on there never got any sun, like on the bottom on this side. So that blocked that, and then obviously there were north facing on that, so any cold, which is the coldest air, comes in. They were dreadful. They were freezing. I mean, you had everybody huddled, you know, they say, oh, it was great because we huddled around the coal fire. You had to huddle around the coal fire, otherwise you'd have bloody hypothermia. And, you know, you'd get up in the morning and your windows would literally be ice. You know, quite literally, because the condensation of you breathing, which the difference of the flats is that, you know, they were all concrete and they didn't have any central heating. The central heating, if they'd been thought of, would have been absolutely fantastic. The size of the rooms were, well adequate, and everybody who even now say that the flats, if they had been put on the market for sale as private, you know, a lot of people would have taken the offer up, because they were quite spacious as opposed to what they're building now in replace of them, which is small. They tend to be tossed up and not really as good and as well built, and will certainly not last as long as what the Garths did.